Welcome to Battleground MTG. This is a podcast I like to give you the inside scoop on everything happening in Congress and how we need to battle to save America. In this episode, I'm going to talk about our national debt, the debt ceiling, the 14th Amendment, and why it's unconstitutional. We're also going to cover impeachment, going over past impeachments and why Joe Biden must be impeached. And lastly, we're going to talk about, is the 2024 election winnable? So let's go ahead and get started. Now, here in Washington, D.C., Congress is going back in session this week. And what we're working on is trying to bring the White House to come to the conclusion they've spent far too much money and they need to pass the Republican plan, which cuts $4.8 trillion in spending in order to raise the debt ceiling. But Joe Biden, as president, wants a clean debt ceiling increase. He has spent over $7 trillion in the past 2 years of his presidency, but yet he thinks that he can just keep spending all your hard-earned tax dollars with no consequences. Well, Kevin McCarthy, our House Speaker, and House Republicans are fighting back. We have refused to come to his terms. We've laid down the gamut. We passed our bill earlier this May and told him what we're willing to do in order to increase the debt limit. But first, I want to talk with you all, and I want to remind you some information about Joe Biden and why he is not the man that we need to be listening to when it comes to our national debt. Let me just give everyone the history on Joe Biden. First of all, Joe Biden took office as a senator on January 3rd, 1973. Let me just let you guys know, I'll be 49 in a few days. Joe Biden has been in office longer than I have been alive. Longer than I have been alive. Now, when Joe Biden took office as a senator, America's national debt was $458 billion. That's $458 billion with a B. That is when Joe Biden entered office as a senator in 1973. But today's national debt is over $31 trillion. Actually, we are very close to approaching $32 trillion in national debt as that debt clock just runs and runs and runs. It never stops running. So just imagine that. Joe Biden's time in office since 1973, the national debt has gone from $458 billion to nearly $32 trillion. This is not the man that we need to trust with our hard-earned tax dollars, ladies and gentlemen. This is the man that has proven with his career of 50 years in office, that he is not responsible, that he cannot be in control of your hard-earned tax dollars. And this is why we're in the national debt crisis we find ourselves today. But yet Joe Biden wants to push back on House Republicans. It's absurd. Let me tell you what he's talking about. He says that he thinks it's possible, that he thinks he can. He doesn't know, but he might. He blunders on to use the 14th Amendment. Let me make this very clear about the 14th Amendment. First of all, let's talk about what the 14th Amendment is in regards to the debt ceiling. It says, but neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss or emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. Let's talk about what the 14th Amendment is in regards to debt. This was passed after the Civil War. It had everything to do with the Civil War, not today's out-of-control national debt. The amendment prohibited former Confederate states from repaying war debts and compensating former slave owners for the emancipation of the enslaved people. This has nothing to do with Joe's out-of-control spending, but yet he is trying to make this about the national debt. Let me give you some quotes of a few people and what they have to say. Number one, Janet Yellen, who is Joe Biden's own Secretary of Treasury, says this would be a constitutional crisis if Joe Biden invokes the 14th Amendment. Joe Biden's own White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, in April of 2023 said that Congress has the constitutional duty to get this done. It's Congress's responsibility, not Joe Biden's. She also said the president has been really clear. Congress must do everything they can to prevent a default. They must do their job. That is the president's position, and that's what is going to continue to be. Well, guess what? We have done our job. House Republicans has passed a bill to cut nearly $5 trillion in spending in order to raise the debt ceiling. But it's Joe Biden that is the one that's refusing to get it done. Now, let's go back in history a little bit. In 2013, back when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the Obama administration was very clear. In 2013, when asked, the Obama-Biden administration still believed the debt ceiling, Carney said. This was Jay Carney, who was the White House spokesman. He said the 14th Amendment would not give the president the power to ignore the debt ceiling. Our position on the 14th Amendment has not changed. Congress has the responsibility and the sole authority to raise the debt ceiling. And that is absolutely correct. So that comes from when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, along with Barack Obama being president. And they knew then you couldn't use the 14th Amendment. Everyone knows you can't use the 14th Amendment. Joe has lost his mind. He has not been critically thinking for several years now, and it's obvious to the American people, it's obvious to everyone here in Washington, and it's obvious to the entire world that Joe doesn't have the mental capacity to make these types of decisions. Therefore, Joe needs to realize that we did our job in Congress. House Republicans passed a bill that we would cut nearly $5 trillion in spending in order to raise the debt ceiling. Joe, it's time to get it done. You need to come to your senses and pass the bill we're asking you to pass. Now, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about impeachment, the history of impeachment, and why it applies to Joe Biden.
We want to thank our good friends over at MyPillow.com, the great Mike Lindell. What a patriot he has been for the Republican Party. And right now, he's got specials just in time for Memorial Day. Save up to 80% on selective products. Those mattress toppers, those slippers, the MyPillow 2.0, it's all there on sale. And guess what? When you use the promo code BATTLE, you'll save some green. Go check it out, MyPillow.com, promo code BATTLE.
Okay, welcome back to Battleground MTG. Now, right now, we're going to be talking about impeachment. Up next is the 2024 election winnable? But first, I want to walk you through the history of the past 3 presidential impeachments. There's a lot of interesting things to remember that you might have forgotten about. Now, let's start with Bill Clinton's impeachment. This happened, let's walk through here. Bill Clinton was impeached on 2 articles of impeachment. This was in 1998. The first one was lying under oath. The second one was obstruction of justice. And obviously that was for lying under oath. Now, what did Bill Clinton lie about? He lied about having a sexual relationship with a White House intern. Everyone remembers the Starr report. Everyone remembers these famous hearings that we all watched on television back in the late 1990s. Now, I want to just walk you through the timeline of this. House Republicans launched the impeachment inquiry on October 8th of 1998. Then, very quickly, with just over 2 months, the House Republicans impeached Bill Clinton on December 19th, 1998. Look how quick they got that done. They launched the inquiry, they had the hearings of impeachment, and then they voted to impeach Bill Clinton in just over 2 months' time. That's really fast, especially considering the fact that no one has done anything on Joe Biden except I've introduced articles of impeachment. I did that last Congress, and I did it again this Congress. Now, let's talk about what happened after that. After the House Republicans impeached Bill Clinton on December 19th, 1998, for lying under oath and obstruction of justice, the Senate took up the hearings. That started on January 7th of 1999. The Senate acquitted Bill Clinton on February 12th, 1999. So the impeachment of Bill Clinton happened again just over 2 months in the House, and then he was acquitted in just a little over a month in the Senate. Wow. House Republicans moved fast back then. But here, I want to give you a little information about Bill Clinton's impeachment. National support for Bill Clinton's impeachment was very low at that time. As a matter of fact, only approximately 3 out of 10 Americans supported impeaching Bill Clinton. And then after he was impeached, he had something happen that was pretty amazing. His job approval rating went up to 71% after impeachment. So it wasn't a popular thing with the American people at that time, even though House Republicans had the courage to go through with it. Presidents should not lie to Congress, and they should be held accountable regardless of national public opinion. But that's what happened. Now, let's talk about the next presidential impeachment. This was impeachment hoax number 1, President Trump's first impeachment. Started on December 18th of 2019, and the Senate acquitted him on February 5th of 2020. There were 2 articles of impeachment: abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Now let's break it down of what that was. This was Nancy Pelosi leading the Democrats in the House once she finally thought she had something on President Trump. And what was it? It was a phone call with Vladimir Zelensky. This was again, you know who he is, president of Ukraine. It was a phone call between President Trump and Zelensky where President Trump was just asking him if they were investigating Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, because obviously we know, and everyone knows now, the proof has been shown on the Hunter Biden laptop, and the proof is also being shown in our investigations and the Oversight Committee in the House that there is real corruption, there is real abuse of power, there is real pay-to-play schemes that took place between Joe Biden, the Biden family, and many foreign countries. And that's extremely important to remember. But it's really interesting that the Democrats completely twisted this entire thing and turned it against President Trump. They turned it against President Trump wrongfully, and they impeached him, accusing President Trump of the very things that Joe Biden is actually guilty of. They said that he was trying to meddle in the 2020 election by talking to Zelensky about these investigations. But never forget that it was Joe Biden himself, and he is on camera as vice president, admitting that he was willing to withhold American aid, U.S. aid to Ukraine, in order to stop a certain prosecutor from investigating his son, Hunter Biden.
I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
They always turn the tables, and they go after us and accuse us of the very crimes that they're guilty of themselves. So that was Democrats under Nancy Pelosi's speakership in 2019, late 2019, early 2020. They went ahead and impeached President Trump. That was the first impeachment, and the Senate acquitted him on February 5th of 2020. Well, not much longer after that, the second impeachment happened. This was one, this is a day I'll never forget. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget it because I went to Washington, D.C. that day to vote no on impeachment. This impeachment was a complete lie and a complete witch hunt, just like the first one was against President Trump. He gave a speech, President Trump gave a speech on January 6, 2021 from the Ellipse, and he told people to go peacefully and let their voices be heard. And President Trump is on camera. He's on video. He is recorded saying these things. Well, the Democrats, after the January 6th riot, they moved to impeach him, and they got it done in 1 week. Nancy Pelosi impeached President Trump in 1 week, and we voted for that on January 13th, 2021. I voted no. I proudly voted no. But it's a day I'll never forget, and it should have never happened. And then the Senate acquitted President Trump after Joe Biden took office on February 9th, 2021. Now, the reason why I want to talk about these impeachments is because last week I introduced articles of impeachment on Joe Biden because of the national security crisis at the border. This is one that takes no explanation. This is a national security crisis that all of you know about. As a matter of fact, the entire country knows about. Chicago is overrun with so many illegal aliens that Chicago residents are in an uproar about what to do. They're trying to figure out where to house these illegal aliens, and they do not know where to put them. They're starting to put them in schools since kids are out on summer break. You've got Mayor Adams in New York City demanding that illegal aliens be sent to every city in the country because his city, New York City, is so overrun with illegal aliens. This is all happening under Joe Biden's presidency, and it is all purposeful. The invasion of America is purposeful. So I introduced articles of impeachment. Now, I want to contrast with you the difference between Bill Clinton's impeachment, President Trump's impeachments, and looking at impeaching Joe Biden. Number one, let's talk about national public polling. Last week, Rasmussen released a poll, ironically, the same day I introduced articles of impeachment on Joe Biden. 53% of all voters, Republican, Independent, and Democrat, 53% believe Joe Biden is guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. That is a massive difference in national public opinion on Bill Clinton, where only 3 out of 10 Americans believe Bill Clinton should be impeached. Let's also talk about the Democrat and Independent voters. Approximately 44 to 45% of independent voters believe that Joe Biden is guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. And 35% of Democrats believe Joe Biden is guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. This is the public opinion. This is every reason that Republicans in the House should have the courage to move forward with impeaching Joe Biden for the national security crisis at the border. There is no reason to not get this done, and we should be doing it. The American people support it. The national security crisis at the border is incomprehensible, should have never happened, and Joe Biden is guilty of every single bit of it. Well, I want to give you guys a little phone number that you can call. This is a phone number you can call for any purpose at any time to reach House representatives like me and other members of Congress. The number is 202-225-3121. 202-225-3121. You can call and ask for any member's office, and you can give your opinion. You can say what you think should be done about Joe Biden. Let Republican members of Congress know that you want Joe Biden impeached for the national security crisis at the border. This is not a hoax. This is not a game. It is not a political witch hunt. We have to save America by impeaching Joe Biden. Okay, stick with me now for the next block. We're going to be talking about, can we win in 2024?
We want to thank our good friends over at MyPillow.com, the great Mike Lindell. What a patriot he has been for the Republican Party. And right now, he's got specials just in time for Memorial Day. Save up to 80% on selective products. Those mattress toppers, those slippers, the MyPillow 2.0, it's all there on sale. And guess what? When you use the promo code BATTLE, you'll save some green. Go check it out, MyPillow.com, promo code BATTLE.
We now have black and white evidence that the FBI interfered in the 2016 election. And then when they failed to get their candidate elected, Hillary Clinton, then they just set out to destroy the Trump administration. So then go up to 2020. It was the CIA this time that got involved in the 2020 election with those 51 former intel agents who talked about the Hunter Biden laptop as total Russian disinformation. So they've gotten away with it for 2 elections. They're for sure going to get away with it, try to get away with it in 24, right? Because there's no consequence. The difference is in 2024, the evidence is there. We now have the Durham investigation. We have all the congressional investigations. There is now hard evidence that there was election interference by the U.S. intelligence agencies and the Department of Justice. They've got to be terrified, those individuals have to be terrified that a Republican president comes in the 2024 election with a Republican attorney general, investigates them and charges them all with the crimes they've committed over the last 8 years.
Well, we'll see about that. You're right. There are questions around these elections because of this interference. Do you think there will be election interference then in 24?
Take it to the bank. They will absolutely interfere in 2024. We're not sure how, but they will absolutely interfere, not only because they're not going to like whoever the Republican candidate is, but because they're going to protect their own hides. That's why they were talking to their own people, and the whistleblowers have brought this up, that they were told, don't put anything on paper, just tell us orally. They knew that they were doing stuff wrong. They knew that they were going to be liable for prosecution.
Yeah, it's too bad. I wish the media were more curious about all of this. Unfortunately, the media takes the narrative of the Democrat Party and runs with it and then tries to cancel anybody who's not on board.
Well, they're in the same position. They can't possibly admit they were wrong because that sort of it just undercuts their whole reason for being. So they're going to continue to have the fake narrative, and they're going to continue to cover up and pretend that nothing bad went on. I mean, they're all in it together. This is what the terrible thing is. These people are selling the country. They're just selling us out, not only to foreign leaders, but they're interfering in our elections. They're tearing up the Constitution. Why? Because they want to protect their jobs. They want to protect their ratings. It just is. I never thought I would be this upset about how anybody in the government was performing, but this is just a gut punch to the American people.
It really is, and it's because you're a patriot. You don't want to see this kind of injustice. I agree with you. KT, it's good to see you. Thank you.
Wow, KT McFarland laying out the truth, and we all know it to be true. I'd like to add on to that. Not only did they meddle in the 2016 election, but let's go to the 2018 election. Look at what the Mueller investigation did on the fake Christopher Steele dossier. Never forget what this dossier is. It's nothing but a campaign smear. It's a report that Christopher Steele put together, and Hillary Clinton's campaign paid for it. Then they used that dossier to go ahead into the FISA court, and the FBI used it and pretended that it was real in order to launch the Mueller investigation, which was the original witch hunt against President Trump. And they did this Mueller investigation, costing the American people over $30 million. And it was nothing but a lie. And then that set up the whole precedence into the 2018 election. It was unbelievable. Then going into the 2020 election, again, KT McFarland is right about that, where we saw 51 people from the intelligence community sign their name to a lie, saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was not real, when in fact everyone knows it's real, and these people lied, and they should lose their national security clearances. There's no way they should keep them, and these people need to be punished for lying to the American people. That's how the intelligence community played a part there. Look at what happened on January 6th, where we are deeply questioning how many federal agents were involved in the January 6th riot at the Capitol, and whistleblowers have been coming forward in our hearings, especially in the weaponization of government hearings, telling the truth that indeed federal agents were involved in January 6th. Well, we have more questions about that. We want to know how many were involved and what they were doing. And was it a true setup, just like the Governor Gretchen Whitmer trial that we saw in Michigan, where it showed there were far more federal agents than there were people actually committing those crimes. But here we can even talk about the 2022 election. Did the intelligence agencies get involved there? Yes, they did. They got involved with Twitter, where they suppressed people's speech, where they canceled people's voices. They did that in 2020 as well. Even in 2022, the entire campaign year when I was running for Congress, they had permanently banned my own personal campaign Twitter account, not allowing me to raise money, not allowing me to fight back in campaign ads, not allowing me to use my voice, my freedom of speech, and also as a candidate for United States House of Representatives to be able to campaign on Twitter. They permanently banned me along with many, many other great Americans, and that is meddling in an election, 2022. So, of course, we should be asking, what are these intelligence agencies going to do going into 2024, and how will they attempt to affect the presidential election of 2024? I think a lot of people are concerned, and I think it's right to be concerned, because here's what they do know. When President Trump is reelected and becomes president again of the United States, he's got the list that no one else has of the people in the deep state and the people here in Washington that need to be cleaned out, and these agencies need to be gutted. So that is something that will absolutely happen if we can restore President Trump to the White House. I will definitely be supporting him and helping him any way possible in draining the swamp. It has been far too destructive to our great country. Now, I want to talk to you about something that I think is really important. Speaking of President Trump, let's talk about some of his agenda items for 2025, if we can get him back in the White House, and I believe we can. Now, here they go. Mainstream media, what do? They've got to smear, they've got to lie, they've got to do anything they can to hurt President Trump. They always want to stoke fear and build fear in the people's eyes so they don't support President Trump. And here's how they're doing it. There was an Axios article that came out just this past week where they're talking about President Trump's second term governing plans are coming into clearer focus, they say, as he lays out a vision for dramatic expansion of federal power, particularly the presidency. Expansion of federal power has happened under Democrats. This is Joe Biden, ladies and gentlemen, not President Trump. And this is why I want to talk about this article. There's a lot of people who don't pay attention to all the details, but these people are paying attention to things. Number one, they know they're suffering from inflation. Number two, they know that America is not as safe anymore like it was under President Trump because crime is out of control. They know that there are problems at the border because illegal aliens, over 5 million, have come in our country since Biden took office. They know that fentanyl is killing over 300 Americans a day. So no matter what you lie about in the news, it's hard to trick people because they know what's happening, even if they don't know the details. Here's the things I like outlined in this article in President Trump's agenda in 2025. Number one, he is going to pardon many of the January 6 rioters. I fully support that. Many of these people have been locked up and it's wrong. Not all of them. Some of them deserve to be in jail, but many of them deserve to be pardoned. And President Trump is the only presidential candidate that has said he will pardon these people. They've been persecuted. Number two, President Trump will end the war in Ukraine. That will happen immediately, he says, in 24 hours. Why is Joe Biden and the administration, why are so many people in Washington constantly pushing for war and funding war in a foreign country that is not our own? Why are they so bloodthirsty? That's the real question everyone should be asking. Innocent people in Ukraine are dying every single day in this war in Ukraine that America is funding. And you all need to understand that our country is funding the Ukrainian government at $1 billion every single month. Every month, Americans are funding the Ukrainian government. That has nothing to do with the war. That's just to keep the lights on and keep Zelensky in his nonstop supply of green T-shirts every single day when we see him on the news. Let's also talk a little bit more about what President Trump will do. President Trump wants to fire federal workers. He wants to have the authority to hire and fire federal workers at will. Hey, guess what? This is what happens in the public job sector. Why can't it happen in the government? It's a no-brainer. It's common sense. Education is part of a sweeping plan for the federal government. He wants to fire radical left officials who accredit universities, reward schools that abolish tenure for teachers, eliminate many college administrators, and remove diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Parents all over America are cheering for President Trump's education plan. Sounds great, no matter what Axios says about it. Law enforcement. President Trump says that he is going to defund the corrupt Department of Justice and the corrupt FBI. You know, that's a really good idea, President Trump. I've said it myself, and I support you in this effort. We need to clean and drain the swamp by getting out the corrupt political activists in the Department of Justice and the FBI. And Americans everywhere are clapping and cheering. He's also vowing to get rid of Marxist prosecutors. These are these DAs, these are these prosecutors that have been funded by George Soros. These are the ones that don't prosecute crime affecting people. These are the prosecutors that only prosecute their political opponents. Just like Matthew Graves here, the U.S. Attorney in the Department of Justice that I've introduced articles of impeachment on. I completely support President Trump in getting out the Marxist prosecutors that abuse their power. President Trump says he wants the Department of Justice to investigate big pharma and big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up the long-term side effects of sex transitions, especially in children. And he wants to boot hospitals or providers from Medicaid or Medicare and Medicare if they offer gender-affirming care. Again, Americans are applauding and support President Trump in this. It's completely wrong. Kids should never be even told the lie that they can change their gender, let alone giving puberty blockers, which have long-term permanent side effects for the rest of their lives. And then genital mutilation is completely wrong. I hope under President Trump, we can pass my Protect Children's Innocence Act, which will end so-called gender-affirming care, which is really genital mutilation on children, permanently, and make it a felony for anyone who engages in this monstrous practice that is horrific and should never be performed on kids. Again, Americans are applauding. They cheer and support President Trump. President Trump wants to use the U.S. military to go after drug cartels and street crime. That right there is a winner for our entire country. Unlike Joe Biden should be impeached for our national security crisis that he created at the border, President Trump would use our military to defend America's border, and he would take down the cartels and take down criminals all over America. That's what the U.S. military should be used for, not fighting another foreign war in another foreign country and paying for it at the same time. Go, President Trump. That is a great plan. Housing. He wants to eliminate an Obama-era rule that requires cities and local governments to address residential segregation and poverty in order to receive federal housing grants. He wants to stop the abuse of hard-earned tax dollars in the housing, in HUD housing. That's a good thing. We need to get people back up on their feet. We want them living successful lives, not dependent on the government for generations. Thank you, President Trump. He also has a plan that I think is really interesting. He calls these freedom cities. He wants to give baby bonuses to create a new baby boom. You know, it's a great thing to have children. It's a wonderful thing to have babies, not abort them and kill them in the womb. President Trump wants to give people incentive to have babies, and we need more babies. We need families, and that's the way to grow America. President Trump, this is the one that I want to finish on. Second Amendment supporters everywhere, you'll love this. President Trump wants national concealed carry reciprocity. That would be fantastic. You want to know why America is great? You want to know what protects America from being invaded by all these other countries is because Americans are gun owners. And when Americans are gun owners, America is safe, not only from some foreign country that would want to invade us, but also from our government. And that's why we have the Second Amendment. Thank God President Trump supports the Second Amendment. He wants Americans to not only be able to own a gun, but to be able to carry a gun to defend themselves or others if the case ever rises. So I fully support President Trump with national concealed carry reciprocity. I think it's a fantastic plan. Now, you guys, I want to finish on this. At the time of this recording, supposedly it's being reported in the news that Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is going to announce that he's finally running for president, even though he's been running for president for months and months. And the whole thing has been pretty much a joke. Unfortunately, Ron DeSantis has been like that kid walking around the swimming pool, scared to jump in the water because he's afraid the water is too cold. Well, let me go ahead and say the water is too cold for you, Governor DeSantis, unfortunately, because the polling shows that America wants President Trump back in the White House. And here's what I really hate. I think you've been played by a bunch of your consultants that just want to make money off of you running for president, because they're the only ones that will benefit out of this. You know, Governor DeSantis is a great governor for the state of Florida. We need more strong Republican governors all across America. I've said that over and over again. But you want to know what? Americans, Republicans, MAGA supporters, America First voters are making it known loud and clear every single day. The only presidential candidate they want to send into the general election of 2024 is Donald J. Trump. He founded Make America Great Again. He is the originator of America First policies. He's the man that we need back here in Washington, D.C. to clean up this nasty, filthy city, this disgusting and horribly corrupt government. He's the guy that brought world peace for 4 years while he was president. He's the one that moved the American embassy to Jerusalem. He's the one that brought safety and security to our southern border, northern border. He's the one that made us proud to be an American again. We need him back in the White House for 4 more years to finish the job. So unfortunately, it's too late for Ron DeSantis, and it's too late for anybody else. We appreciate them getting out there and running, but the MAGA base is going to elect President Trump, and I'm here for it. I can't wait to watch it happen. I've endorsed him already, and I've supported him from day one. Okay, you guys, that wraps it up for Battleground MTG. Don't forget to follow us on all social media, Battleground MTG, and also stay tuned for more episodes. We'll see you soon.